Thanks for joining us. Developing news to tell you about. The chief of police in Peel Region says officers are stepping up their presence at a Hindu temple in Brampton. This after a protest earlier today. Video posted on social media showing a clash of violence. Brittany Billette takes us there and has more on the swift condemnation from the country's top politicians.
Video posted online shows the moments a protest outside a Brampton Hindu temple turns violent. It appears just before protesters were waving pro-Khalistan flags outside the temple's gates. Hours later, on the front steps of Sabha Mandir, worshippers gathered in a show of unity.
We should not get scared. Rather, we should act.
Peel police say they're investigating the incident, but so far no one has been arrested or charged. Both sides say the other group attacked first. The organizer of the rally says protesters were there peacefully.
The pro-Khalistan rally wasn't against any Hindu community. The rally was against the Indian officials, diplomats who were present in the mandir.
Six for Justice also organized this protest in Surrey, BC this weekend, where Indian consulate members visited a Sikh temple. BC court documents say officials are visiting places of worship to help community members complete administrative work, but protesters say the consulate members are a threat.
This is a long-standing dispute between India and its Sikh population overseas, the Khalistanis, who are seen by India as an existential threat, but as Canada and other countries say, they're our citizens now and they have free expression in our country.
Both rallies were organized against a backdrop of tension between India and Canada. Last week, Ottawa accused India's Home Minister of being behind several attacks on Sikh separatists on Canadian soil. It's an accusation that goes all the way back to last summer when pro-Khalistan activist and Canadian citizen Hardeep Singh Nijjar was gunned down outside a Surrey Gurdwara. The Indian government denies it had anything to do with his killing.
We're in for a rough patch, and there has to be temporary ameliorative actions taken to see to it that there's not violence of this nature.
A number of Canadian politicians took to social media to condemn the violence that erupted in Brampton, including Justin Trudeau, Doug Ford, and Brampton's Mayor Patrick Brown.
Places of worship are sacred. They should be safe places, and we don't want to see violence or intimidation in any place of worship in our country.
Worshippers say they want to see action, not words.
Whether it's Mayor Brown, or whether it's Doug Ford at the provincial level, or it's Justin Trudeau. Enough is enough.
Six for Justice says it's planning another rally next week in Brampton. Peel police say while they respect the right to peaceful protest, any threats or acts of violence will be investigated. Brittany Billette, CBC News, Brampton.
In other news tonight, we are less than 24 hours away from a by-election in Toronto's Don Valley West. Voters casting ballots after their longtime councillor died of cancer. Tyreek Reed now has more on the race and some of the big issues.
Biggest issues are traffic and overcrowding and housing.
Voters in Toronto's Don Valley West are voicing their concerns ahead of Monday night's by-election. 14 candidates are racing to be the ward's next city councillor. Some of them are familiar faces.
I'm out here advocating for common sense policies at City Hall to get the city working for families, obviously in Don Valley West and all across this great city.
2023 mayoral candidate Anthony Furey is one of the candidates trying to connect with as many voters as possible. He says he has plans to tackle crime.
Allocating resources to the police. We have 500 fewer police officers than we did 10 years ago, despite the fact the budget has grown quite a lot and taxes have obviously grown more than ever. So allocating resources that way is really important.
Rachel Chernus-Lynn has also planted her roots in the community after serving 6 years on the Toronto District School Board. She's focusing her attention on pushing back against development projects in the area. That includes fighting against the Ford government's plans to move the Ontario Science Centre.
Moving it down to the waterfront is a huge issue for this community because it really presents a barrier to engagement. We need to fight for something really, truly amazing on that site and fight for that building and keeping a science center in this community.
An October 20th poll from Liaison Strategy shows Furey in the lead with Lynn following close behind. But experts say the outcome is still unpredictable and won't necessarily mean a dramatic shakeup for council.
And that's because Olivia Chow has been very effective at pulling together a very broad consensus of support on City Council.
The by-election was called after longtime City Councillor Jay Robinson passed away from a battle with cancer earlier this year. Candidates have been on the campaign trail since September. With less than 24 hours left until results, they say they're ready to get to work.
And I want to work hard for all Toronto families to get the city moving again in the right direction.
When we have a strong Don Valley West, and that contributes to a strong city as well.
Voters have until 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Monday to cast their vote. Tariq Reed, CBC News, Toronto.
2 people were injured in a serious crash on Highway 410 south of Steeles in Brampton. Ontario Provincial Police say it happened just after 11 this morning. Now, police say a single vehicle with 2 people inside slammed into a guardrail. A female was ejected and at first was taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. The other person with serious injuries, police say their conditions have since improved and that charges are likely pending. Highway 410 southbound and all on-ramps were closed for about 4 hours for the investigation and cleanup. The choice American voters are about to make could not be more different. Donald Trump making claims of a stolen election before the counting even begins, while Kamala Harris is delivering a more traditional message, urging voters to make a plan to get to the polls. Katie Simpson is in Washington for us. She has more on the final push before Tuesday.
Donald Trump is setting the stage and priming his supporters to reject election results if he loses, accusing his opponents of cheating in a series of baseless claims.
They spend all this money on machines, and they're going to say we may take an extra 12 days to determine. And what do you think happens during that 12 days? They are fighting so hard to steal this damn thing.
In one of his final rallies, Trump's language hit extremes even by his standards. From the former president expressing regret he left the White House after losing the 2020 vote.
We had the safest border in the history of our country the day that I left. I shouldn't have left.
To jokes about the attempts on his life and violent rhetoric.
To get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much.
She's in Detroit. Kamala Harris focusing on battleground Michigan, urging voters in Detroit to make a plan to get to the polls.
In just 2 days, we have the power to decide the fate of our nation.
And trying to combat Trump's unfounded claims of voter fraud.
I would ask, in particular, people who have not yet voted, to not fall for his tactic. The systems that are in place for this election in 2024 have integrity. They are good systems.
All the day after a surprise appearance on Saturday Night Live.
The American people want to stop the chaos
And end the drama
with a cool new stepmama.
In Washington, D.C., at Harris's alma mater, Howard University, preparations are underway to host Democrats and their election night headquarters. Students here remain hopeful, inspired by Harris's candidacy.
Honestly, it is an amazing feeling. It's crazy to think that we have come so far.
Oh, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling to see how she came from being at Howard and just to see that there's goals for me to, maybe get in politics one day.
National and swing state polls suggest this race remains a toss-up with just hours of campaigning left. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Regardless who wins the White House, there will be an impact felt here in Canada. JP Tasker takes a closer look at what's at stake.
And we know it is time.
With the U.S. election result on a knife's edge, Canada waits anxiously to learn what could happen to the trillion-dollar bilateral trading relationship.
The whole world needs to buckle up because President Trump will continue his policies from 2016. He will continue those policies.
Trump's former ambassador to Canada says people here need to brace for higher tariffs if her old boss wins again.
The word tariff, properly used, is a beautiful word. One of the most beautiful words I've ever heard. It's music to my ears.
Trump's promising a minimum 10% tax on all imports, a potentially disruptive development for Canadian businesses and the workers they employ.
We are going to make certain that we make America great again. and we bring it back to where it was under the Trump presidency.
That's not what Canada wants to hear, but the government's point person on the U.S. says Ottawa is ready for a Trump 2.0.
We have stood firm with Canadian businesses and workers in the past. We will continue to do that.
Mary Ng has met Republican and Democratic lawmakers in dozens of states, building an alliance against trade protectionism.
We are strategic partners. We are dependable partners between Canada and the United States, and that will for sure continue.
Canadians will also be watching the upcoming transfer of power. The current U.S. ambassador says he's not worried.
And I firmly believe that regardless of the outcome of the election, that the United States is going to remain the most durable democracy in the world.
A Kamala Harris victory could also be challenging for Canada. She was one of 10 U.S. senators to vote against the new NAFTA, a trade deal that's worth so much to this country. She's promised to review it if elected. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
CBC News Network is the place to be for all the latest developments on election night when America votes. Join our chief correspondent, Adrian Arsenault, for a live special as results begin to roll in. That starts at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Tuesday on CBC News Network and wherever you get CBC News. We have correspondents across the U.S. and we'll tell you what the results mean for Canada. Street Haven hosting their annual walkathon earlier today, raising awareness about the growing challenges women who are homeless face. The executive director says while fundraising is critical, the event is about so much more.
We really want to do with this awareness raising event is really draw attention to the fact that we need more investments in women's services, especially around affordable housing, shelter services, and addictions treatment services here in Toronto. Though there is significant underinvestment at all levels of government when it comes to women's services.
Their goal is to raise $50,000, money that Street Haven says will go directly to help essential services like shelter, meals, and support programs for women in need. The campaign runs until November 25th. Sophia joining us now for our first look at the forecast. We were hyping this extra hour of sleep, daylight savings time coming to an end, but that didn't happen in our house, Sophia. The kids were up at 5:30. They didn't get the memo. Caffeine today has been a lifesaver.
Well, my friend, you are in good company. I am joining you also very bleary-eyed today from my early rising children. I also spent the whole day double checking to see what time is it really. And many of you will be double checking what season it really is this upcoming work week, as we are expecting a wild but very mild Texas low to barrel in. And boy, do I mean mild. I'm talking about September, even late August type temperatures. Tuesday is the day that really takes the cake. Look at that. Mid-20s for some of you. These are temperatures 15 degrees above the seasonal normal. The 20s all the way up to Owen Sound, Barrie, even in the nation's capital region for Tuesday. Comes with a wet and very windy price tag, though. Watch as that warm front comes up north on Monday. Many of you seeing rainfall in parts of north and northeastern Ontario for Monday all the way into Tuesday. Heavy rainfall at that as well, right into Wednesday. While some of you to the south are maybe missing the rain altogether, places like Hamilton or Niagara. For everybody else, maybe some spotty showers and even some breaks of sun and cloud. But for those of you that do see the heavy rainfall, it could be some monthly totals, 50 to 75 millimeters along some of the lakeshore regions up towards the Nickel Belt and into Timmins. And those winds come in earnest on Monday, 30 to 40 kilometers an hour, but gusts up to 70 all across the board into Tuesday. Coming up in the long range, we will talk about some of these unreal temperatures and how Tuesday overnight could be one of the warmest nights in November history. Shannon.
More record-breaking weather. Okay, thanks, Sophia. A moment to remember as Vince Carter saw his jersey retired and raised to the rafters, a first in franchise history for the Toronto Raptors.
For Hall of Famer, legend, and the first Toronto Raptor to have his jersey retired, Vince Carter!
There it is, number 15, now forever memorialized at Scotiabank Arena. The special occasion bringing out all sorts of big names. Carter started his NBA career with the Raptors, Playing for the team from 1998 to 2004, there he is with his kids. He was widely credited with helping put Toronto on the map when it comes to pro basketball. Carter, known as Air Canada, also repped Toronto when he took home the 2000 NBA dunk contest title. He capped off his career as an 8-time All-Star after playing 22 seasons in the NBA. Canada Post says talks continue with both sides at the table. So far, a 72-hour strike or lockout notice has not been given. Operations running as usual. In a statement tonight to CBC News, Canada Post said it is rapidly falling behind in today's highly competitive, customer-focused parcel delivery market. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers said last week the latest offer from the Crown Corporation is, quote, far from what we are demanding and deserve. It says a strike notice could still be issued any time if talks break down. Meantime, there is unrest at British Columbia's ports once again. Employers say they will lock out more than 700 foremen after their union served strike notice. As Yasmin Hainea shows us, the industry says job action could shut down the entire West Coast port system, risking hundreds of millions of dollars of trade.
The Port of Vancouver in operation for now, but the possibility of province-wide labor disruption looms.
We are very concerned about the potential of a shutdown of Canada's largest gateway.
The BC Maritime Employers Association is threatening to lock out more than 700 foremen Monday morning after their union issued a strike notice, sparking fears of a complete shutdown of the West Coast port system.
On the import side, the dominant traffic is the container traffic, which has got consumer goods and parts and components for manufacturers. So all of that stops across the board.
The union and employers have been bargaining for months to renew their collective agreement that expired in March 2023. The main sticking point, protecting jobs from automation, which is not addressed in the final offer from employers. Instead, it includes a 19.2% wage increase over 4 years and, on average, a $21,000 lump sum payment for eligible workers.
What do we want? Contract! When do we want it? Now!
This dispute comes just over a year after a 13-day port workers' strike froze billions in trade at the docks. Industry groups are urging Ottawa to step in.
We are asking the federal government to make ports an essential service so that they remain fully operational at all times.
Canada's Labour Minister says federal mediators are on site ready to help the two sides. He says it's their responsibility to reach an agreement, adding that businesses, workers and farmers are counting on them to get a deal. Yasmin Hainea, CBC News, Vancouver.
A visit today by Spain's king and queen to the country's flood disaster area, sparking protest. Some chanting murderers, others throwing mud at the party. Anger has grown around the time it took to issue alerts before the flood and to deploy response teams after. Despite today's volatile atmosphere, the king meeting the crowd and speaking to victims. The number of dead now stands at 217, with dozens still unaccounted for. We are heading into a short break next. Sophia will be back with your local forecast. Stay with us. In Sudbury, many lacing up their sneakers for Run to Remember today. Collège Boreal has been organizing the fundraiser for 7 years now, ahead of Remembrance Day. It's all in support of first responders and military members, raising money and awareness about post-traumatic stress disorder.
It's just a great way to support all these different causes. Yeah, so it's fun.
We can always do more. More people volunteering, more people getting involved, more people using their platforms that they have to raise the awareness to what's happening and who it's affecting.
proceeds go to I've Got Your Back 911. The group offers online access to mental health supports to those suffering from PTSD. There's also a scholarship for the Physical Activity and Health Promotion Program at the college. Sophia is back with us once again, talking about some very warm temps on the way that you say could even be record-breaking.
Yeah, some pretty massive records stand to be broken, and some pretty unreal overnight temperatures are incoming. Not for Sunday overnight, you're seasonal in the region, and clouds as this Texas low begins to move in. Flash forward to Tuesday, though. Temperatures for our overnight conditions are about 15 degrees, about where they should be. For overnight lows this time of year, you should be around the freezing mark. We're talking about overnight lows that are warmer than what our daytime high should be. 17 overnight Tuesday in Ottawa, in Cornwall, 16 in Toronto, and even 13 in Barrie. If we reach some of these temperatures, they will be the warmest November low temperatures for our climate records, beating out previous numbers like 16 in Hamilton and 15 in Windsor. So the unreal warmth doesn't just extend to Tuesday. Overnight Tuesday and Wednesday daytime will both be pretty warm as well. We're actually coming off a really warm month of October, where the majority of days were above seasonal. Could see a pattern change, though, for late November. As cooler air looks to set in, we'll have more of a seasonal pattern in parts of the southern Great Lakes Basin. Until then, enjoy the wild but mild setup as this Texas low comes in. Rain towards the north and the northeast, heavy rain for the next few days, and a few days of really gusty but a warm southerly flow in parts of the south with on and off shower chances. Remember my advice to everybody to put away the Halloween decor now, as winds will be gusting upwards of 60, even 70 kilometers an hour for a good 2 to 3 day stretch. Monday afternoon, seasonal values. The temperatures really pick up for Tuesday. That's the day that's about 15 degrees above the seasonal norm, with 20s right across the board. This is shorts and t-shirt weather, folks. The warmth continues for part of your day Wednesday before the passage of that cold front, and then temperatures eventually heading back down to seasonal, but plenty of sunshine to end off the work week from Thursday right into Saturday. A few of you may even squeak out 2 days in the 20s in parts of southwestern Ontario. Shannon.
Wow. Sounds gorgeous. Thanks, Sophia. Have a great night. That's our show for you tonight. Thanks for watching. Before we go, we want to take you to the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair, wrapping up its first weekend. This year's Royal Ambassadors, there they are, two adorable alpacas. That's Dawson and Pacey. The Winter Fair is the world's largest combined indoor agriculture and equestrian show. It's jam-packed with all sorts of fun, from food to animal entertainment. It's running now through next weekend. We'll see you again soon.